We are here, Hillary and Clinton with Black Landing, another episode in Halifax for Junos Week. We are so excited to be connecting with so many amazing artists, and this is an artist that I actually got to meet very recently at the Destination New Brunswick event. So we've got a New Brunswick event, but we were in Toronto. Now we're in Halifax with Keysha. How are you?
Well, thank you. A little tour.
Hey, all of Toronto. And before we get into it, here's the intro. And now we're back.
And we're back.
Amazing.
All right. Well, if you're not already, please make sure you like, comment, follow, subscribe, and share our content. And of course, we're going to be dropping the handle for Keysha and share her content as well. Anything you can do to support us and the artists is always amazing. So just be mindful of that while you're listening, and let's get into it.
Let's get it. Keysha, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm excited. I feel excited. I'm blessed. I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. So start us off and please, we'll be, as I said, learning alongside the audience, but tell us a little bit about you. I think I saw that you grew up in Ajax. So tell us a bit about that experience, what that's like, and how we get to your music career and your talent.
Well, it started in Scarborough. I was born in Scarborough. I spent quite a bit of my childhood there, and then we moved to Ajax when I was younger with my two older brothers. My parents, we moved to Ajax, and it was vastly different. Growing up in Scarborough is a lot of kids that look like me. There's many ethnicities. I was in school with multiple different. It's a very, very diverse environment. Then you move to Ajax, and for a lot of years, I was the only black kid in my class. My brother was, so it was interesting. It was different, and I don't know. I've always been a creative person. My mom always says it. Everyone always says it about me. My family, from birth, I've been creative, and I had my first song published in the local paper when I was 5 because I was writing since I was a child. Writing rhymes and music. I've always been a fan of it and just love the sound. So it's just something that I've been able to nurture. And, at first it was Ajax, was it a stifling environment? How did, people always ask, how did it affect my creativity? Coming from an environment where people don't look like me and it's not diverse. But I always think my parents, I spent a lot of summers growing up in New York, and just being influenced by the culture there directly. So I do thank my mom and my dad for making sure we saw more than just Durham.
Of course, yeah, I've heard. I've sort of been, but I've heard. That's amazing. So tell us a little bit. So you grew up in that area and you weren't stifled, which is amazing. So how do you discover that you've got this talent and this musicality and get to a place where you're at the Junos? You said you performed. You did stuff last year. So tell us a bit about the come up and all of this amazingness.
Well, yeah. So when I was 5, I had my first song published. The teacher basically gave everyone a project. She was like, we wanted something creative. It's about to be springtime. Everybody draw something that represents spring. And I didn't want to do it. So she was like, well, you always are singing and humming. So why don't you write a song? And I did. And she was impressed that a 5-year-old wrote what I wrote. So they had it published in the newspaper. And so from there, it's always just something I wanted to do. And I remember being 9 years old and making a little mixtape on a recorder, just rapping on a recorder. And so it was always, rap music was always there, hip hop was always there, R&B and that kind of stuff was always there in my life. So it was no surprise, obviously, when I turned 10, 12, 11, 12, and I said to my mom, I want to be a rapper. And she was like, okay, I know, cool. Yeah. So, and then again, having parents that were very supportive, they fostered that in me. They took me to the studio. They made sure I was able to record. They allowed me to be a rapper and be creative in that space. So that was, I think, a major factor, having them kind of push and be there for me. And so, just growing up, getting older, I just had my first professional song released when I was 15, turning 16, Hollywood Fresh. And that did really well commercially. It was a success. It was a great record. And then it didn't stop. It kept going. So, being 15, 16, and now 16 years later, I'm I'm still doing it. 11 projects later. I've toured across Canada. I've performed in South America and in America and different places. Like I've checked off so many things from my bucket list. And so I think back to this 9-year-old kid, this 5-year-old kid who this is I like she knew what she wanted to do.
Amazing. I'm curious if was there any like musicality in your family? Like, it sounds like they were like so supportive, and we've been hearing that a lot today with all the other interviews. That like the families are backing up the creatives, which is humbling, nice to hear. Definitely different than I think a lot of people would expect. But was there anyone else in your family that was musically inclined, or are you like a born prodigy and you're the first and you're setting trends out there?
No. I have older cousins who are singers. DJ Mel Boogie, Maestro Fresh West, those are my older cousins. So it's literally just I think it's just in our blood. I think it's in our blood. We're from a small country in South America called Guyana. And so, in that country, it's a musical place. It's part of the culture there is West Indian culture. It's Caribbean culture. So we grew up around reggae, soca, lovers rock, easy rock, and those kind of things. And then hip hop when we migrated to North America. So I think it was just who we are. We were born into music. And so I know Prodigy by any means is literally, it was the influence around my family was always, music was in the house all the time. Older cousins were into hip hop. So it was me just kind of gravitating towards this thing. And I always say, to have my parents support me and my family support me, like I said, 9 years old is when everyone was like, yeah, this kid is going to be a rapper. That was, for me, that was 22 years ago, right? 21 years ago. So when I look back to those times, it's like, it's a different time than it is now. You never saw female rappers with that kind of success in Canada. Prior to that, there was like Mishi Me and stuff of that nature, but there was like a pause for a little bit. So it was a scary thing to say to your parents, I want to be a rapper. And they're like, okay, we'll support it. But I'm grateful that they did and my family did. So music is in my family. Everybody's musical people.
That's amazing. Yeah, growing up in Toronto, I had a best friend in Scarborough who was Guyanese. And I remember whenever I was at his house in Malvern, there was just, first Spurways and then Malvern, there was just always music playing on the main floor all day. It was just music. So that makes a lot of sense. So you have a musical family, musically inclined. Maestro is your older cousin. It's just, yeah, a lot of people who get into music, it's, there's always a parent or parents or family that are in it. You mentioned spending summers in New York. Your family down there?
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about New York and how that influenced your sound.
I think there's no Keysha Freshh without New York. I mean, I think there's no rap without, New York. We know the story. But just the influence of, I would just vividly remember when we would drive to New York at the beginning of summer. My birthday is always literally like the last week of school. So it was always exciting to get out of school knowing that I'm going to New York that week. And we jump in the car and we go to New York. And as soon as we get even within the closest radius to the city, I'm telling my dad, me and my brothers are like, Hot 97, Hot 97. Like we're yelling, Hot 97. And so they already, turn to and so we're getting to hear, some hip hop music that we don't necessarily get in Toronto. Because at that time in the 90s, we didn't have a station for that. Right. We didn't have a hip hop station in the 90s. Yep. So to be able to go to New York and then just get all of this music and like, yes, who is this? Who is this? And then like we would go and get mixtapes from our cousins and stuff and bring it back and, little cassette tapes. And then, when the CDs came in, we were getting those. So to be able to get those, to bring it back, then dub it for our friends and give it to them like, yo, this is what I heard in New York on the weekend. Like, because it's hard to explain to people if you didn't grow up in that era. You know what I mean? It's hard, but it was beautiful. And for me, just going there and being inspired by the culture, my mom will tell you, I was 5 years old, and I said, can I have a pair of Timbs? Like, because that's what I saw in New York. Everybody had Timbs, and my dad's like, why does she want worker boots? And my mom's like, I don't know, but they bought me Timbs at 5 years old. So yeah, man, my mom, that's what I said, I told her I wanted Timbs and I bugged them for Timbs, and on my birthday they bought me Timbs, So it's so much things, the style, the sounds, the music, the outfits. I was so inspired and influenced at a young age. So, we spent summers. My mom would eventually, when I became like 11 and 12 and stuff, she would just send me on the bus and I'd go and my aunts would pick me up and I'm there for the summer. And yeah, it's such a huge influence on who Keysha Freshh is. My name, like even Fresh, that part of my name was given to me by Dougie Fresh, the legend. You know what I mean? So New York is that's where I shot my first video. That's where like my entry to the world of hip hop was. So I honor it just as much as I honor Toronto.
Given to you by Dougie Fresh, or he inspired the name?
No, so yes. So my first record, Hollywood Fresh, we sampled Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh on the hook, Fresh dressed like $1,000,000. So we had to call him to clear it because he owned the sample. So we called him and got it cleared, and he invited me to come shoot the video at his house. So we went to New York and we shot the video at his house with him, and his family was so welcoming and it was such a great environment. And we were sitting on the couch, and at the time I just went by Keysha, and then it was just like capital S and then Keysha. And so he would be like, Keysha Freshh, and like just kind of jokingly. And so I remember turning to my engineer and I was like, yo, that should be my name. Like, it's cool. And so, yeah, that's where the Fresh came from in my name. There was no Fresh before.
What an amazing story.
Refresh my memory, because it couldn't have been Hot 97. I remember when Flow 93.5 came to Toronto, it bumped off the airwaves. Was it a Buffalo radio station that you could sometimes get in certain parts of the city?
Yeah, so WBLK was the only station that if you were in a certain part of the city, you get WBLK. That's where you would get, if you were up late at night and stuff, you would get your R&B and your hip hop. Yeah. So that's like the only proximity we had to hip hop for a long time until Flow came. Yeah,
Flow bumped that off the airwaves because the signal canceled out the signal coming from Buffalo or whatever, right?
93.7 was WBLK and Flow was 93.5. And so because Flow got such a stronger signal, sometimes it would bump it out. Yeah. You had to really be West. Yeah.
Trip down memory lane for me.
Yeah, the way that you reacted, I was like, oh, okay,
I'm just remembering those days.
Yeah, 4 radio stations
the 90s,
in Moncton.
90s,
they were
Toronto
mainly like Brooks and Dunn. So, amazing, cool. So I'm curious, I mean, like, is there anywhere in particular you would say that you get your musical influence from or your sound from, other than this like amazing family and people who've inspired you along the way? Is there anyone else that or are you trying to be, completely original and you?
I mean, I don't think complete originality is a little naive in my opinion. I think we all draw inspiration or something from somewhere or someone. And so whether it be a person or a place or a time, influence for me is all around. Like, I travel a lot, and in my travels, it allows me to meet people and see things that I want to write about. I write about experiences and relationships very often. So my inspirations come from every single day and what I'm surrounded by. And that's really important to me. But sometimes I might throw on like a Bombadia or MC Light, I'm throwing on AZ, I'm throwing on just so many rappers from the 90s that were so iconic to me at Camp Low. I'm listening to a lot of Pete Rock and CL Smooth, trying to catch a particular feeling. So, and sometimes that changes, because then sometimes I'm listening to Afro beats for the whole year, nothing else but Afro beats, because it's just how I feel. So the music is always inspired by something, a feeling, someone, a situation. And to draw more influence, I'll grab an artist that I like and listen to them for a while and, build around that.
It's the big mishmash.
Yeah. Paying homage, as we say.
So, like, you were a young artist in the days of, like, the Circle Crew and Ghetto Concept, the Circle. Did you get to hang around those guys and par with them and everything? Because those were, like, unknown to many, but in Toronto, like, legendary musicians.
I think nowadays more so, you really get to connect with a lot of them. They call me hip hop's kid sister, because a lot of the OGs in the hip hop game in the US and Canada, all, I have cool relationships with a lot of them. I've done work with them, I've done work with Maestro, I've done work with Solitaire, I've done work with Socrates, Mishimi's a big sister to me, so there's just so many of them that I grew up listening to, and I'm one of those people that love Canadian rap, Canadian hip hop and R&B. I'm so immersed in it. I study them. I think some of the greatest rappers I know are from Toronto, Canada. So, back when I was first starting in music, it was, I've reached out to them. I was so inspired. Everyone's like, yo, why are you going to all these guys from the 90s? And I'm like, yeah, because that's what I listen to. I love them. Like, yeah, why don't you try to link up with the newer rappers? I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but I want to learn from these guys who did it and they went through it and they've been through it and they're going through it, so yeah, man, it's really, really cool. Recently, I last year, August, I did the manifesto, and I was direct support for Socrates on that. And after the shows, it was a bunch of us, and like you mentioned, circles, Shaw Claire and Sock and Julie Black and Infinite from Ghetto Concept, and there was a bunch of us getting to, and they were mingling and mixing with all, me, Hawaii Mighty, like a bunch of us were all together connecting. So just to, bridging that gap is really important for me. So I'll reach out to them and say, listen, I'm a fan. I've always been a fan. This and this. Can you give me some tips? You have to extend the branch and get to know them. Yeah.
So,
Of course.
one more question, and I'll pass it back to
Sure.
you. Where you mentioned touring around the world, and I always think that's really interesting. Where have you toured? What countries have you toured to? Because one, I feel like a lot of people don't understand that Canadian artists do tour and are quite popular in other countries, even if they might not be household names here in Canada. But where have you toured, and what was performing in different countries like, and what did it teach you about being an artist?
Oh man. So one of my favorite performances I did was um in Brooklyn at the Knitting Factory, which was really cool because it's such an iconic venue, very historic venue. So I did a show there with this group called Loaf Music from Brooklyn, or from New York. They're really dope. They were making music around the time where a bunch of really cool crews were coming out of New York, like the Underachievers and Pro Era, Joey Badass's crew, and the ASAP crew. All of these crews were coming up at the same time. And I just loved loaf music. So I got to do a show with them and then a rapper named Denzel Porter and Osmond Benjamin, who acts now. So we did a show, and it was really iconic to perform at the Knitting Factory with them. It's something that I'll always cherish because, like, this is Brooklyn. This is where I spent a lot of time as a kid. So coming back to perform there was awesome. Hartford, Connecticut, where I opened up for Rakim, which was amazing. That was an awesome experience. After the show, he was sick. He had a cold. And after the show was done, I was standing in the hall and everyone was aligned in the hall, and it was like almost like it was written. Everyone was aligned in the hall, and I was standing by myself in the middle, and he was coming off the stage. He was coming backstage, and me and him just walked towards each other, and he embraced me and hugged me, and he said, "Oh, sis, you were awesome." Like hugged. And so just like even that kind of embrace from a legend like Rakim was amazing. So yeah, I've done Connecticut. I did another show at the same festival the year after where I hosted the festival and MC Light was the headliner. So I've been blessed to perform in so many different capacities. Atlanta, Georgia, I did a stadium there. I was on a festival, a show, and I did a stadium there. Guyana, like where we're from, I got to go back there, and just that felt amazing. This is where my roots are from. It's where my family's from. So just to be there was incredible. But yeah, Canada was the best. We did I was part of a group called the Sorority. So it was myself, Phoenix Pagliacci, Hawaii Mighty, and Lex Leosis. And we did 3 tours. And our main tour that supported our album, Pledge, was our headlining tour. We went from Victoria to Vancouver and then Calgary, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, et cetera, all the way till we got to Halifax. I think was here. We did shows here, Montreal, Ottawa. We hit every province. I think there's like one province we haven't gone to. And so to see Canada from a lens of creativity, like what we're doing, I think that every artist, I pray, gets to experience what we experience. Connecting with fans. To sell out Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, it's like I didn't know I had fans. We didn't know that people listened to us in Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. And then so to go there and people are screaming our lyrics and singing to our songs, I was like, you couldn't write a better story. So Canada was probably the most touching because this is home for us. Mm-hmm. And so to get love from all corners of home, that's something I'll cherish for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm. So let's touch on working with, I guess, your cousin, Maestro. Fresh West. And so you're featured on his children's album. So talk us through like that process. I don't know a ton about the project either, so I'd love to hear a little bit about the project. If it felt like a big pivot, create like from a creative lens, and like tell us all about this piece.
So 2022, he had called me, maybe a little bit before. Yeah, 2022, he called me. He said, yo, 2021 actually. He said, yo, I'm doing an album. It's a children's album. He said, based on the book, because, he came out the book. And he said, it's a children's album. And he said, I got this idea for the character Julia the Great in the book. I want her to have her own song, and I want you to voice it. Do you think you could do it? And I was like, a children's album? Okay. I said, okay, tell me more. Tell me, like, what is your vision for Julia? He's like, did you read the book? I said, I don't buy children's books, but like, let me read it. I said, let me read it. So I got the book and I read it and I called him back and I said, bro, I could do this because she sounds like me, man. Like the attitude, the confidence, she sounds like me and she's a great rapper. Like, yeah, I said, this is me. And he started laughing. He said, okay, good. I knew you could do this. So he said, let's build this out. So, we got the production and he sent it to me and I liked it. So I said, okay, let me record the record. So I was living with my parents at the time and I recorded the song in the guest room there and I sent it to him. And he was like, yeah, this is great. This is excellent. I said, okay, cool. I'm happy that you like it. So we had the song Julia the Great that was nominated for Children's Album of the Year that year. Then last year, we did it again. He calls me, but this time it's bigger. He calls me and says, Julia the Great was dope. I want to give Julia the Great her own album. So he's like, now you're going to be doing 6 songs, right? And he's like, do you think you could do it? And I'm like, yeah, I could do it. So at the same time, right around the time I did the first song, I was actually doing some children's songs for Treehouse. They have something called Toon Bops, which is a very popular children's channel on their YouTube and on Amazon Prime. And so I was, my old college professor brought me in to do some songs with them. So I'm like, okay, I'm just in the children's world. Like, I'm just doing children's stuff now. This is cool. Like, okay. So then when he tasked me to do my, Julia the Great project, I'm ready. I'm like, cool. So same thing, guest bedroom, knocked it out. And I had swollen lymph nodes, but I still did it. I got through it. I was like, yo, this is hard. It hurt, but I did it. I got through it. And I sent him the stuff 3:00 in the morning. I think like 2 hours before the deadline or something like that. Submitted it to him and we did it. And, we mixed it and everything like that. And the ideas and the concepts on that album was, I don't know what kind of creativity he taps into, but he goes into some world. And so things like bake sale, one of the songs was about a bake sale, and it was so cool. It was a math quiz. It was so cool. There's so many people on the album, Rich Kid and Simone Denny, and just so many creatives on the album. So it was really dope. So that was nominated, and it was Maestro Fresh West featuring Keysha Freshh. So that officially made me a Juno nominee last year, which was cool. And that got nominated in the children's category. We didn't take it home, but it was a great experience. Got to, really experience the Juno from a nominee perspective, which was awesome. And then again this year, he said, okay, we're going to make a children's sports album. Julia got to represent. I'm like, I'm going to be there. So again, calls me, sends me the production. And so I have, I think 3 or 4 records I'm featured on, did some vocals on another record on that album as well. So that is also nominated this year for Children's Album of the Year. So I'm just excited. I'm excited.
That's amazing. I feel like you might get this comment often, but I think that my knee-jerk thought to all of that is that I think a lot of people might still feel that there are stereotypes or be stuck up around rap and these sounds and songs and think that it's for an older demographic or like a different age group. And then you make something like this, which hopefully makes it even more, approachable for youth to know that like, this is a sound that anyone can enjoy. Maybe there's lyrics that have profanity in different types, but it's hopefully embracing a different audience and telling kids that like, yo, these songs are dope. The sound is dope. These people make amazing music and that it can be heard at a younger age. So I think that's great.
And I agree. And that's the goal. I mean, just the fact that he even had the foresight to do this, do a children's album, do a children's book, connect with the youth. And it's something he's so passionate about. And this passion goes back to the early 2000s. He had a song called God Bless the Child, which is one of my favorite songs from him of all time. And the first line he starts with is, nobody says a thing about the kids in Iraq. Like he socially conscious, always pushing the envelope, always talking about the issues. So, I feel like this was a natural progression for him, and just everything that he's done, even the sports, the theme of this album was sports. And so he's big into sports, and kids and youth in sports. So I feel like everything he's doing is amazing. It makes sense. It's just the next step. He's always reinventing himself, and I'm grateful he brings me along for the ride.
And I will say too, hearing him speak at the Destination New Brunswick event, he's just so focused on legacy and this fact that when you've got a 30-year career, what are you about to do next, or what are you going to do next? And it's like this continued kickback to the community that I thought was absolutely amazing to hear. So, what a cute story.
And that's his favorite thing to say, if there's one quote, like I even posted on my Instagram the other day, if there's one quote that everybody kind of he says he genuinely feels because he says it to everybody is, don't make records, make history. And he always says, do legacy work. This is legacy work. He's always talking about legacy work. So it's not a cliche for him. He genuinely believes in this concept, and he's constantly evolving and working towards it. And it just inspires me to do the same.
Absolutely. Amazing.
Regarding inspiration and stuff like that, are you working on anything? And if you don't have to, but what's in the future for Keysha Freshh at the moment? Are you working on new music? Is there a new album coming in the next year?
Always new music. So this year I'm going to be dropping a project called Pretty Boys Break My Heart. So that's going to be in July.
Damn right.
That's going to be in July. And yeah, yeah. And so I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a little bit since I've dropped a project. I've just been focused on, working with Maestro and getting the children's stuff and other things that I wanted to do. So to get back on like a whole project idea, I've dropped singles throughout the years, but to get back on a project and have a cohesive piece of work, I'm excited.
Really different, right? It's like a book. It's like a piece of art as opposed to a short story or a poem or a lyric. Yeah, it's a whole concept, a journey from start to finish when it comes to an album. Now this is going to be a hard question for me, and it shouldn't be for you, but usually when we're talking to someone and what they do, how they spend their time as like a career or a job, I always like to ask, what else? What else? Tell us more about Keysha. Now, but you were born into music. You've been doing music since you were 5, and it's all you've ever known. But if we could dive a bit deeper, when you're not making music, who is Keysha? What are your interests? What do you like? What's life?
I like that. That's a dope one. So people know me as a sneaker collector. I collect sneakers. So I'm heavily involved in the sneaker universe and sneaker world. I've done work with brands like Nike, Foot Locker, Adidas, just a lot of creative stuff in the sneaker culture. I'm really big on women in sneakers, Black creatives in sneakers, so I do support that a lot. And then also I'm big in sports. So the goal is in the next couple of years I want to support more young women in sports, women athletes. That's in hockey, basketball, soccer, flag football, touchless, any kind of sports and activities for women. I think the issue that I'm seeing is there's a lot of women and youth, but women who don't have access financially or even just the space to explore playing sports. A lot of the opportunities are for the boys, a lot of the tournaments and stuff that they get to go to is for the boys. So as we're seeing sports become more popular, I'm very passionate about making sure that women and young girls are included and they feel like they belong and they can have a fair opportunity to play and be involved. So that's something I'm passionate about and I want to explore a little bit more as well. So
I like hearing that.
Yeah. Before we wrap it up, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience? Anything we didn't touch on? Any more about Keysha Freshh, or that you want to tell everybody? Anything that you want to plug? This is your moment to tell our listeners what they need to know about you that we haven't covered.
My moment to tell the listeners something won't be about me. I just want to say I'm really proud of Maestro. I get emotional because he's the blueprint for a lot of us, and the fact that he is the first rapper to be inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame is it's mind blowing to me, but it's also like, man, it finally, finally we've arrived, we're here, and a lot of us, most of us wouldn't do this if he didn't kick down the doors that he had to kick down and face the things that he had to face for us to be able to be here and represent at this level. So again, great. And then the fact that he reaches back and brings so much of us along with him on the journey. you couldn't find a better mentor or a person to look up to. So I'm very proud, and shout out to Maestro.
Shout out to Maestro. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All right. Well, once again, for people who are listening to the audio podcast, because we always try to push the video, we go out of our way to push the video, but most of our listeners are audio podcast
Everyone
listeners.
looks fly.
Yes.
Watch this.
Take out your earbuds, stop washing the dishes, go sit in front of YouTube.
You listen to 30 minutes. Now watch the other. Watch it. It's different.
So your Instagram handle is Free Keysha. So if people, you should go check them out. So FreeKeysha. And I guess where do you want to direct people to listen to your music the most? Is it Apple, Spotify? Does it not matter? Truth be told, you should try to find a way to support, buy an album, buy some merch, something like that. But for people that just want to whip out their phones and start listening right now.
Everywhere. I'm everywhere. I'm on Tidal, Spotify, Apple. If you go on social media, you type in Keysha Freshh, Keysha Freshh. You will find me on all platforms. But it sounds cocky. I hate saying this, but the best way to find anything you want on me is Google me.
Just Google her. She's Googleable.
Yeah, that's not cocky at all. Not in the slightest. But that shows how humble you must be as a human being to feel that's amazing. Okay.
Awesome. So thank you
so much for your time.
for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Support Keysha in whatever way. Googleable. So do that. And this has been another episode from Halifax. How many more will there be? We don't know. Because we are out here
we didn't even
supporting.
bother changing our outfits. This usually when we do more than one episode in the day.
Just like switch your shirt.
Too busy.
This part will change. We will stay the same. And
We out.
Peace.